as an Indigenous person, at times people want access to Indigenous community. And when you do those things, you're opening the door to strangeness. You know what? If I'm working and teaching summer school and paying for it on my own, I am in control of my project. I'm in control of how long I stay there, who I'm seeing, where I'm going. I felt that was more empowering than waiting for acceptance from whoever is deciding who gets these things.
Hello, print friends, and welcome. I'm your host, Miranda Metcalf. This is a bilingual podcast, so if you subscribe to us, you'll be getting episodes in English with me, as well as in Spanish with Ronaldo Zambrano. Together, we speak to people from around the globe about their practice and passions in the field of print media and multiples. Hello, Print Friend is brought to you by Speedball Art Products, who've been offering a diverse range of high-quality products to your practice since 1997. If you are looking to add some pizzazz to your practice, check out their new line of additive glitter. Add a sprinkle of their additive glitter to any Speedball fabric screen printing ink to bring a touch of shimmer to your next design. This glitter additive can be used in nearly any ratio, whether your sparkling vision is more subtle or dripping with scintillating shine. Check out the link in the show notes. This episode is also brought to you by Legion Paper. Legion is a fine art paper company representing the best papers in the world. They either stock it, source it, or make it. With brands like Stonehenge, Somerset, Coventry, Reeves, Arches, and more, Legion is the best paper resource for every artist and printmaker's needs. Learn more about the variety of paper Legion stocks at www.legionpaper.com. My guest this week is Melanie Yazzie, head of printmaking at the University of Colorado Boulder. We talk about growing up in the Navajo Nation and how Melanie learned about studio practice from watching her grandmother prepare for weaving, how she started working and traveling on her own dime when she wasn't getting the residencies she wanted, the incredible places around the world she's now traveled, and how showing up authentically with the people in your life and the people that you meet can lead to wonderful opportunities. So, without further ado, sit back, relax, and prepare to be present with Melanie Yazzie. Hi, Melanie. How's it going?
Good morning. It's wonderful to be with you.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me. I feel like this has been, for both of us, like a hard won, moment to sit down together. We've had car issues and tech issues, and we've been talking about it for months, and I'm so happy that we're finally here together.
Me too. I love the whole idea of just speaking about printmaking and art processes and all of the things that we're going to do. So I've been really looking forward to this.
Oh, I'm so glad. So before we get into all of my questions here, would you introduce yourself and just let people know just that basic questions of like who you are, where you are, and what it is that you do?
My name's Melanie Yazzie, and I am of the Saltwater clan, born for the Bitterwater clan. My maternal grandfather's clan is Edgewater. My paternal grandfather's clan is Red Streak into the Water. And that's how I stand in this world as a Diné Navajo Nation person. And then in this outside world of, I guess, academia, I'm the head of printmaking at the University of Colorado at Boulder. And I've been here since 2006, so I think it's 16 years. Before this time, I taught at the University of Arizona in Tucson. Before that, or one of those years, I taught at Boise State in Idaho, which was really amazing. And before U of A, I taught at the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe for 6 years, right after graduate school.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all of that, and then just being Native American and Navajo that makes me who I am, or builds me into the person I've become.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's so interesting. I feel like we've got some connections from all those institutions. I lived in Santa Fe until very recently and got to know IAIA there really well. And I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson. And then my brother and sister-in-law both did their PhDs at UC Boulder, not in art and philosophy, but I've walked on the campuses you've walked on.
Beautiful, beautiful.
And so, where did you grow up and what role did art play in that part of your life?
I grew up on the Navajo reservation. Or I guess the Navajo Nation is what most people call it now. It's in the Four Corners regions of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and oh my gosh, Utah.
Mhm.
And anyhow, the Four Corners area helped form who I am. Being Navajo is at the base and foundation of how I place myself. My both of my grandmothers were traditional Navajo weavers, and my grandmother on my mother's side, I spent most of my time with her as a child, and I believe it's through that indirectly that I directly and indirectly really learned about studio time because she would prepare her weavings and go through this process of getting ready to do her weaving, and everyone respected that, I guess, studio practice. And it taught me at a young age like what one needs to go through to get prepared to make work, and the respect that the family had for her art practice. I think over time I started to realize that was informing why and who I am, and being around that at such a young age, and the discipline that she had with her weaving practice was really incredible because it was what brought money in to the family. And she would weave a rug, and then we would take it into Gallup, and then we'd later in the day be driving home in a new truck. So you could see the value of her work and what it would bring. And so that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand. I think people see me and don't know that part of my childhood. My grandparents both spoke Navajo on my mom's side, and pretty much that's all they spoke. And I grew up around that at a young age, just being with them. And I think just seeing the world through their eyes, appreciating the mornings and appreciating animals and the outdoors, it started at that place. And so when I look at the work that I make now, it all comes from that time period. And I'm not sure if I'm even answering your question. Once I start talking about family, or I feel comfortable enough to share some of that, it's really hard to separate that from who I am as an artist.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a beautiful answer to the question because I'm always interested in when artists are young and they're really coming to understand that making and visual communication and craftsmanship, and as you spoke to, discipline and what it is to have a studio practice, that's such a world that I think so many of us, it's the water that we swim in now. But not everybody is exposed to it. Not everyone grows up with it. And then sometimes people learn it, not until graduate school or even after. And so yeah, I think you answered the question wonderfully when you said that you grew up seeing people in your family, the women in your family, already doing that and already being a part of that practice. So yeah. Did you learn weaving at all? Did they share that art with you?
It wasn't something that I ever strive to learn. Like, I was around it, I appreciate it, I collect it, but it was never something that I tried. And it goes into other. I always tell people when they ask me that question that I did a story on the moth, and it really speaks about. So I'm not going to go into that. I would say listen to the moth story because it's pretty emotional, and it ties directly into this question of my choice of what I do now. I think when I was growing up, my parents saw and supported a lot of artists in our community on the Navajo Nation. And it's that whole thing that the stereotype that we all grow up with, that artists are like starving and don't have money. And so it was never really encouraged. And I think it was one of the things that I saw a lot at the Institute of American Indian Arts is that people had a hard time choosing art as Native Americans because in my mind and in my heart, I feel like most Native Americans somehow within us, there is this creative spirit and ease with creativity and making beauty. And because it's part of the way we walk in this world and it's part of how we're taught from a very young age, I think at times because it's something so normal, at times I think our community sometimes undervalues the role of an artist. And so when people in my from my community at times choose the path of being an artist, it's a really difficult one because everyone's like, well, yeah, every we can all make drawings, we can all make stuff, and that's nice. And because everybody is inherently talented with it. So once one from my community at times chooses to be an artist, it's there's a lot of struggle that happens to choose that path, and there's all these questions that we've asked ourselves of like, why do I want this? Where is it going to take me? And I find the meaning and the direction of the work, I think ultimately ties to community and history. And so a lot of times when I was teaching at the Institute of American Indian Arts, the level of conversation and understanding and the heart of what a lot of the work was about was super meaningful. And it brings up a lot of things for me, these different questions. And again, I'm when I'm answering your questions, I'm trying to think of what is somebody in their studio want to listen to and want to hear with all of this. And I know when I'm working in the studio and listening to either music or different things, I'm wondering about some of these things we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so in that context, you said that to choose to become an artist might bring up other questions. What was your personal journey like then to choose to become an artist or to follow this pull that you felt towards making and visual communication and art and the artist's life?
I think from a very early age, I was really just I love creating and making things. Like I would sew things together, little sock critters. I was always like looking forward to art class in grade school and I would spend a lot of time and I always remember my teachers being really supportive and like excited when I would create things and their response was always like, "Oh my gosh, this is so different." And for me, I just thought, "I love this and great." And I it was strange because I remember there were different people who had really strong comments of like support and praise, but the way that I understood it in myself was that I love this and I'm going to keep making it, and I wasn't really surprised by it. And so that's why when in my adult life or as I've gone through life as an artist and people have told me or asked me about an artist block, I have not really experienced that. I remember the first time I experienced it was after my mom passed away from COVID in 2020. There were a couple of months that I just was blank. I just couldn't make, and I think it was just deep, deep grief.
Mhm.
And then I was able to move past it and start creating based off of a drawing that my mother and my grandmother did, and then I was able to move forward. But before that and since that time, like I've always been able to create, and I've not had that artist block. If anything, in my younger years, the artist block was that weird thing that we all, I don't know if it's all of us, but this the weird thing that I went through of thinking that artists have to make art in a certain way or it has to be painting was something that you had to learn in a certain way. Like everything I felt had like a recipe or a got or proper ways to do it. So it limited me. My own interpretation of what art making was limiting me. And when I got to the point where I started making art, like in printmaking and ceramics and drawing and like all these different things, I realized that I was the one holding myself back because I just wasn't. Thought that you had to take a class in painting to learn to paint. But I think one of the most beautiful things I learned was from my husband, Clark Barker. He had taken a painting class with Harmony Hammond at the University of Arizona in Tucson. And he said, I said, when you were taking the class with Harmony Hammond, like, what was it like? He was like, I loved it. He said, the best thing that she said to us was, you learn how to paint by painting.
Mm.
Just do it. Just make it. Like, and he said that some people were wanting, like, I guess the Bob Ross method of like, this is how you paint a tree and this is how
Right,
you do
right.
this.
Here's the foolproof method,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
and her method was that you paint. You paint a paint and you learn from the process of painting. And somehow when I heard that, I just was like, holy crap, I can paint. And I just started. I painted before that sort of in secret and in hiding, but then I just really went into it and owned it. And I think that's something that as artists, somehow we keep ourselves in that space of like it has to be done a certain way. And when I teach, I know that there's a foundation of how you begin teaching your students different things. And I tell them there's a certain way that I'm going to teach you how to do a relief print or how to do a monotype. And this is the process for this class, but there's a million of ways to do all of this. It's all been done before. And I said, I grew up in a time period where sometimes faculty would say, this is the only way to do it. I said, but I've learned in my
Mm.
lifetime that there's hundreds of ways to do things. And your job is to learn with someone. And I said, the reason I want you to stay on a certain path is that when you do run into a problem, if you're all following the same path that I'm showing you, that I can help you resolve it because we're all on the same path. But if everyone's on a separate path, it makes it a lot harder to get you to learn the basics. And then I said, once you learn the basics and you know how to do certain things, then the doors get open and then you're trusted to experiment with all these things. And anyhow, so that whole thing of how you make art and how you become comfortable with making it, I often will tell people it's really in your own mind. We lock ourselves into thinking it's supposed to be a certain way. And there, I don't know, there's so much I can say about how you move forward in your path as an artist. And when I work with my students or graduate students about their path, one of the biggest things that I tell people is how I practice is that I just make and make. Like I find my path through the process of making. And that if I have if somebody is experiencing an artist block, I say then you need to just keep creating. Even if you make something bad, you're going to find something good in that terrible thing that you're doing. Sometimes you just have to do the stupid things, the silly things that don't make any sense or that are cute and fun. And then as you're working through it, you come upon an idea or something that will lead you into a new direction. But
Mm.
sitting and saying I have an artist block and not making anything, I don't. For me, it just I don't get that. I always say just continue making.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That like the practice is the medicine
Hmm.
and it will show you through.
It
That's
will.
beautiful.
I just I don't know. I tell people at times if you're not like interested in the practice and if you don't have that method, you will twirl and spin in that weird artist block place. And I try to say at times with students or different people I work with, it's like an athlete training. They have to do sprints, crunches, push-ups, like all these different things. And that's what your daily studio practice is to go in there and do those things to keep yourself fit. And when you're at a point like when uh, athletes reach that point where they're not able to get beyond a certain place, they try something completely new. Or like they may be doing too much strength training, so then they'll do bicycling or they'll do something else and it'll get them out of that place. And I feel it's the same for artists. Like if you're so much in a place and you're feeling stuck, like try something else, try another process, go take a hike, take a break, and then come back to it. And then like set a, a goal for yourself. Like I'm going to do 40 gesture drawings, or I'm going to do this thing. And then as you're going through the sit-ups of your assignment,
Mm-hmm.
you realize like, oh my gosh, I could be doing this or that. And it helps you move forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. In your own narrative in your life and how you became the artist that you are, when did you discover printmaking? When was that introduced to you, and was it love at first sight, or did it take a little bit longer?
My sophomore year of high school, I left the Navajo Nation and went to a Quaker boarding school on the East Coast. It was a school called Westtown School outside of Philadelphia. And it was at Westtown that I had this amazing roommate. Her name was Haynes Sprunt. She's a poet and an artist, and she's passed away some years ago, but she was taking an art class at Westtown, and I remember she played the violin, and I would go and listen to her play that. And then she came back from this art studio at one point, and she had these drawings on this paper, and it had this smell. And I said, what is that? And she said, they're etchings. And I said, but this paper, it's like so soft. And I smelled the ink, and I just was like amazed. And
Mm.
they were realistic drawings of these shells, and they were so beautiful. And she said, yeah, I did this in my art class. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that. Like, what is this? And that was a sophomore year, and I didn't take an art class till my senior year because I wanted to get all my requirements out of the way and then be able to focus on it. So I always worked towards like, I'm going to take an art class, and I'm not as good as her, so I'm not going to waste my time trying to take it now. I'll take it later. So then I think it was during my senior year, I signed up and took art classes, and my art teacher, Caroline Luce, was just like, oh my gosh, like you really love this. And I said, yes. And I want to, what else can I do to be in the studio? And so she said, well, you could have a work study to help clean the studio and come in on the weekends. And so then I took on that job, and I was just like, this place, like I cleaned out the sinks with a little razor blade to get
Mm.
all the paint out. And just like, it was like a place of worship for me. I just thought, this is amazing. And then I started making art pieces and following assignments. And I remember my teacher, Caroline, saying to me, like, why haven't you taken an art class? Like, you obviously just love this. And I said, well, my roommate was Haynes Sprunt, and she's just like amazing. Like, I could never. And she said, Yazzie, like, Haynes has been making art since she's been a kid. Both her parents are artists, and like, you should never compare yourself to anybody else. Never. Everybody has a different way of making things, and like you will find your own way. And I'd never heard that before. I started to like just see things like each of the assignments. And to this day, like it's funny because I'll have students who are like, I already did that assignment, or I don't need to do this or that. And I always tell them, I've actually done these assignments like 50 times. And like each time I do it, I love it. And I don't care if it's a gesture drawing or a 2.3 point perspective. Like I see it, and I tell myself, look at this. It's just so amazing that I can do this thing, and I can see it in a new way each time. And I think at times when I've had people say to me, how do you know you're an artist? And I'm like, well, when you can take basic assignments and do them 15 or 20 times,
Hmm.
and you're still just like hungry to do it, like you're hooked. Like you are definitely an artist, because like only an artist is just going to love it. I mean, I think it's the same way with cooks. Cooks can like scramble an egg or make an omelet or make the most basic thing and do it in such a beautiful way. People who are in sports, like they've run tons of marathons, but each time they do it, they're doing it, they're getting in touch with a different part of their body. They're like seeing it in different ways. So when students say to me like, "Oh, I don't want to do that assignment. I already know how to do a one color print, or I don't need to do positive negative," and I say to them, if you can find your way to make it exciting each time, that's a path of an artist. Because like if you're bored of it, this like you've done it twice, if you're choosing this life and you want to teach art making or you want to make this, you're going to be doing this for the next 30 or 40 years. How can you be bored at this point? Like, this is the most beautiful thing in the world. And they're like, you're crazy. I said, I must be, because I teach this every semester and I'm excited each time. And when you discover these things, like, I see the beauty in it. You need to see the beauty in learning and like practicing these basic things, because that's our path as an artist, is to do that.
I'm really loving this because how the conversation's been going is I've been like asking you a question about you specifically, and then you'll answer it, but then you take the specific out into these just pearls of wisdom. I can see the teacher in you coming out in this really beautiful way as we talk
Oh,
about all these different things. It's great. Yeah.
thank
Yeah.
you. I think it's coming out because I feel like there's a sense of trust with who you are and how patient you've been with me to get to this point where we're sharing, that I feel like, oh my gosh, you've been so patient with me, and I need to give you, I don't know, I need to make it a special thing. And I know in my mind, like these podcasts, somebody's out there listening, and how can this be interesting for them?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this. This has been, yeah, just lovely so far. I'm loving every minute of it. So this is great. This is great. And I'd love for you too to talk about, I know that traveling around the world and connecting with indigenous people around the world, that's a part of your practice. New Zealand, the Arctic, the Pueblo people, even to Russia. Can you talk about that experience and how that feeds you in your
It's
practice?
interesting because, again, as a young artist going through school, I always heard about residencies. I heard about different things that you could apply for, and I would apply for those things. And for, I don't know, unknown reasons, like when you're starting out, you don't get selected for certain things.
Hmm.
You don't get that residency. You don't get this certain thing. But I went to the boarding school. I got there when I was 15. After that, before starting college, I went and lived in Mexico for a year and traveled around there. And I was selected in, I think it was 1987. The city of Berlin had their 750th birthday, and they had students write in to like write an essay to see how they could be chosen for Youth Bridge to go to Berlin to celebrate the city's 750th birthday before the wall came down. And I was selected for the state of Arizona with another woman from Hopi. And it was interesting because they had selected all these people from all across the US, and they realized, organizers realized, like they wanted a huge cross section of the US and variety. And they were like, holy crap, we're near the end of our states and we haven't selected any Native Americans. So they said, we, that's how we chose you. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was able to go to Berlin and see that city and experience that part of our history where before the wall came down, and it was incredible. And I was also selected. There was 250 of us that were selected to go, and then 50 once we arrived there were selected to go to Sachsenhausen to see the concentration camp. And it just opened my eyes to a whole part of history that we hear about and see about, and to be in a place like that was just incredible. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I've had all these experiences. Somehow miraculously these things happen, and then when I got into school and wanted to apply for residencies and do all these things, and I was too young and immature with maybe my work that I wasn't select. I don't know, for whatever reasons it wasn't happening. I got to a point where I just got a little angry at the whole system. And I thought, you know what? Nobody told me to go to Mexico. I just
Mm-hmm.
bought a ticket and went there. And I had amazing experiences when I went to Germany. Like, sure, I got this thing, but while I was there was no organization that made that happen. Like I was part of this program, but when I got there, it was what I did and what I seeked out to give me an experience. So had this conversation with myself that what the heck? Why am I letting these residencies and these like awards or whatever control where I'm going? If I want to go to New Zealand, if I want to go to Australia, then I'm gonna freaking get a job and go buy a plane ticket, and then I'm gonna like use this thing called the internet and find people who are printmakers and artists, send them an email, contact them, use this thing called Facebook, connect with people, and start to make it happen. I'm not gonna wait anymore for these things. And if it takes, once I started teaching at the universities, if it takes teaching a summer class to put all that money into travel and to going places instead of waiting for some grant or somebody to give me permission with accepting me, like I'll be waiting forever. Yeah, and there's this whole other idea with academia that sometimes with certain things there comes strings are attached, like the university has ownership of different things you discover. There are different colleagues who want to attach themselves to different projects. As an indigenous person, at times people want access to indigenous community, and when you do those things you're opening the door to strangeness. And so I thought, you know what, if I'm working and teaching summer school and paying for it on my own, I am in control of my project. I'm in control of how long I stay there, who I'm seeing, where I'm going. And I felt that was more empowering than waiting for acceptance from whoever is deciding who gets these things. And it placed me in this wonderful situation where I was able to choose where I was going. I also made this, I don't know, in my own mind, the places I wanted to go where indigenous people were at and are doing their thing, not to the important places that are mainstream. Some of these residencies and different things that people are like, oh, you should get this one, you should get that one. It's really impressive. And I didn't want to be there. I went to some
Mm-hmm.
residencies and it was all about who was hooking up with what artists or who was doing this and that. And I just thought, I don't care and I don't want to see all of that. I want to be within a native community, getting to know what's important to them, hearing their stories, meeting elders, meeting people in the community who are carrying on their traditional crafts and their traditional art forms, and having an impact in their community that's positive. So if it takes teaching summer school, if it takes selling some of my work and saving it up to buy a ticket to some of these places, then heck, that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a result, I would go to these places and then I would teach a workshop, I would do something, and then I would deliver. And I always say there's a power in over delivering. When
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do a workshop and you do it really well and you make sure people are content and happy and you show up on time, you do all those things that, I guess, breaking all the stereotypes of what people see artists as, like undependable, unreliable, all like late all the time, all those different things. If you break those and you become reliable, you make the work, you don't have those excuses, then guess what? People talk about it and they want you back. They invite you and you go to amazing places. And then when you go to those places, you're not saying, what can this do for me? You're like, who's going to be washing the dishes and how can I make some food? How can I, we need gas. Let's go get gas for the van. Let's go take care of that. Like, you pitch in and help. And guess what? People remember that.
Mm-hmm.
You listen to everybody else, you contribute, and lo and behold, people want you to come to these things. So I always tell people, when you go on these things or you make these things happen for yourself, like, be a good person,
Mm-hmm.
contribute, and the invitations will come.
Yeah, yeah. It is amazing, I think, just in the art world, but I think the world in general, sometimes how much just like basic courtesy, basic best practices of as you said, showing up on time, acting like you want to be there, being patient with people who are maybe like trying you a little bit in the workshop, and like just showing up, with that spirit of service first and not serving your
Yes,
ego first.
that.
People really remember it.
Oh my god, yes. And people are always like, Yazzie, you're such a brown noser. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm a helper and a contributor, and I'm authentically excited about being in different places. And I'll sometimes be invited as a visiting artist at places, and they're like, what restaurant or place do you want to go to, or this or that? And I'm like, is there Jimmy John's? Like, let's get sandwiches. Just
Mhm.
have a bag of bread for me and some cheese and some ham, and I'll just make sandwiches and be in the studio. Like, and they're just like, well, we can do this or that. And I'm just like, I just want to be with the studio and with whoever wants to be there with me. And if students sign up and want to help, great. And if they don't, they can go. And they're like, well, they really should be here. I said, I only want to work with the ones who want to be here.
Yeah.
I only want to be with those. And and then what's always awesome when I do these things is the ones who show up and help and are there, like, it just hits my heart. And then I'm like, hey, guess what? Gino from Knoxville, Tennessee, you are coming to Colorado.
Mhm.
I am paying for a round trip ticket for you to come spend a week or two with me in Colorado to help me make work with Tony Ortega. So, and then others are like,
Mhm.
wow, how did so and so get invited? I said, guess what? So and so printed an edition of 30 in one night for me.
Yeah.
I didn't ask them. I didn't say do this or that. They offered it and wanted to be with me, and then I wanted to be with them more, and I wanted to support them. And guess what? I'm a full professor at a Research One university. I will frickin' find the funds and fly you in
Mhm.
if you're interested, if you're helpful, and if you're community oriented and have a good heart.
Yeah.
So I always say to people, like, you just never know when it's going to come back around. So be positive, be upbeat, help people out. And I always try to tell my young ones in my class, I'm like, visiting artist is coming, like, be available, be whatever, because it will come back around. And this is the moment that we've been waiting for this person to come. So I know you have other classes, I know you have different things, but this is a really special moment. So part of my practice is trying to teach different people in a workshop, in my classroom, when I go different places, is to be aware of, I don't know, when I grew up, we had to help with a lot of different things, and that was really important. And so that's something I'm always trying to drive home. And that's what's taken me to be in Alaska, to be invited to different pueblos for different ceremonies, to be in Germany, to be in Japan, in Korea, to be invited back to New Zealand like 8 or 9 times, to spend time in Australia, 3 or 4 visits there, really working with community. And all those things that I thought were prestigious and wonderful that I wasn't accepted to, those were one week making a print, doing this one thing. I have lifelong relationships in all these places, and I can fly to any of these places and email or call someone, and they will be at the airport to get me.
That's great.
And it's
I
amazing.
love that.
Yeah. And I tell people, and people are like, why? Like, it's because you're so well known. I'm like, no, because I'm nice. I I like to arrive in Auckland, and I know where I want to go have a meat pie, and I know who I want to do it with,
Mhm.
and they want to do it too. It's not about,
Yeah,
oh, we're famous and we want to do. No, it's like we're famous for eating nice, good food and being together
totally.
and and chilling in a good way and being respectful of each other. And I want to hear other people's stories. That's something I think a lot of times that we forget is the power of just listening and
Mm.
being present and asking little questions, or maybe not even asking questions, just saying, "Hey, can I tear your paper? Should I
Hmm.
mix the ink for you? You haven't, like, you've been working and doing this. Why don't I run and get a sandwich for you? How do you want it?" That can be the most important question to an artist,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
is like, what can I go get you? And then bring it back and then sit with that person and just be with them. It's really powerful, those moments of being with somebody. And I think a lot of times we need to remember that. I think a lot of times I have people say, well, how did you meet this person or that person? And I said, I didn't even really start out trying to meet them. I was trying to find out about this thing, and then it led into that, and then I heard that they knew this person, and I really wanted to know how they met each other. And they said, wow, I thought you wanted to meet me for this or get an autograph. I'm like, no, I know that you knew this person when they were younger and you guys were in school together, and I wanted to see what that's about. And then we all of a sudden, instead of like getting in with someone, like, we're learning from each other and hearing each other, and it becomes this really special place. And then all of a sudden, guess what happens? You become friends. And then
Mm-hmm.
your good friend says, hey, come to the Canary Islands and let's put an exhibit together. Oh, well, I can't do that. Oh, well, don't worry. So why don't you send your work and we'll put a solo exhibit of your work up in the Canary Islands? I was like, oh, okay. And then I've come into a point in time where somehow it comes up, and then the exhibition works and it's there. But that was never like my intent at times. It was really about just being with somebody. And how can we see each other more?
Yeah, yeah. I really connect with what you said because part of my whole practice is getting stories from people and asking for their stories and sitting in presence and listening to them. And it is so powerful, I think, to hold space for someone to actively listen, particularly. I mean, I really believe, now more than ever, when like, how often are you talking to people? They're like, huh? Like looking like, hold on, I just need to send this email. What? They're looking, we're not with each other in the
Yes.
same way that I think we evolve to be. And I think if you can show up for someone and give them your most precious non-renewable resource, which is your time and your
Yeah.
attention, that is like the best way you can honor someone, I think. It
Yes.
it
It's
doesn't cost
incredible.
anything.
Well, it just requires you to be quiet and present and really like just be there. And it's interesting because that's one of the lessons that's the hardest to get across to people at times. I say to people, they're like, what's the most important art tool or advice you could give? And I'm like, give people your time and respect them and hear them. And some people get it and are like in tune, and it's wonderful. And then some people are just like, what? And I just say at some point it will hit you, but it's and I said, and if you're ever in an experience where someone has done that for you, it feels really beautiful. So if you can do that for people, it's it's wonderful. And I think that's at the basis of how I've been able to travel to a lot of different places, is just back to the basics.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping we can get a chance to talk about your practice as well in terms of the content of it. I know that it's been described as showing the complexities of how contemporary Native people live. And of course you've got a really strong iconographic practice. I'd just love to hear you speak to your imagery, your messages, and how it all kind of evolved to come through for you.
Yeah, I think my work it comes from storytelling, and a lot of the images of women are self-portraits, and I'm putting my experience into making those images of women, of myself, of giving myself strength by planting a garden inside the figure, of asking questions, and then using the print process to put those little icons into the print that may speak to different things. There's like this set of symbols that are ever changing in my work that represent prayers and sacredness, but it's not anything traditionally Navajo, or it's my own Melanie tradition of these icons and these images that I come up with that represent the sacred, that represent the things that we don't speak about in our community. And I'm putting it into the work. And what drives a lot of my work is my need to create beauty and harmony for myself, because I think living in this world that is so full of like difficult moments, when I'm able to go to the studio, it calms my mind and calms how I walk in this world, because I'm always challenged with being seen as the other. I mean, I may be a professor at a research one university, but because I have brown skin, when I walk on campus and I'm wearing my apron to class, people automatically think that I'm a grounds person or that I don't speak English, and I get treated in this way that's different. And so by making my work, I'm healing myself and healing that pain of being different, of looking different. And then I'm also able to add all the other things into the work, that when I'm doing an artist talk or a different thing, depending on how I'm reading the room or the group I'm with, I can unpack different parts of history or stories that relate to that group of people. And so all of these experiences, these histories, all of that lives within me. And I feel like I'm making a map to the way I want the world to be, and then I use the artwork and the symbols in it to help me tell different stories each time I speak about the work. And I've gotten to the point now, I'm in my mid 50s, and I'm comfortable with the fact that these things come from me, and that they are valid because they come from my experience, and that I'm using them to help myself and then help share these different histories. I think it took a while to get there, because I think the work has always looked very simple and basic, and I fought against it a lot, or didn't really give it the power that I felt that it has in my younger years, but I couldn't stop making it the
Mm.
way I do. And then once I realized the power in it for myself, I started to own it, and take it in different ways and make it into sculpture pieces, put it onto into jewelry pieces and other things that have a life of its own. And all of that, like, I remember once someone saying to me, like, wow, now you're doing the sculptures, the jewelry, and this, and you're really cashing out. And I said, it's not about that. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, the prints, the self portraits were about healing. I said, I had a scare with a possibility of having cancer,
Mm.
and I made the work to give myself strength. And then I didn't have it. And then I thought, well, shoot, I could, like, this thing, the doctor said it was very in a late stage, and I could have a little bit of time to live. And then somehow miraculously I was okay. And then I thought, well, shoot, before I do go, maybe I should make some large sculptures so that
Yeah.
people can have this image and thing in their garden with them. And then when I told the stories about my illnesses and different things I'd gone through, people said, well, I can't take a printer sculpture with me because I'm being diagnosed, or they're figuring out what's happening with me. And I wish I could carry something with me. And traditionally with Navajo people, like, I don't have my jewelry on now because I don't want it to make noise during the recording, but we're always wearing jewelry, and the turquoise is like a healing stone, and when it's gifted to you, it gives you like this sense of honoring that it's given you, when it's given to you, it holds this power of like a gift, and that gift in our community represents a healing and a protective thing. And so the jewelry for me represents that. And so when I spoke with Carrie Green at my gallery and we started figuring out ways to do the jewelry and the scarves, it was so that people who collect my work, who are going through these difficult times, could purchase something that would have a healing image, and that they could wear the scarf. They could gift a piece of jewelry to a friend to give them hope and give them something to
Mhm.
help them through a difficult time. And and then when people hear that, they're like, "Oh my gosh," like I said, it's not about the money at all, or like cashing out. I said, if I could do that, I wouldn't be teaching.
Yeah.
I like the work would be selling, and I would be making my living that way. I said, and I could do that, but I don't want to do that. I enjoy the teaching aspect. I enjoy the rhythm of the seasons with my classes, with working with younger people. I'm giving back to community that way. And this other stuff, the jewelry, the artwork that sells in my gallery, it's like frosting on everything else. And that extra income that comes then goes to buy a ticket to go back to New Zealand. It buys a ticket to go to another place in France to do a workshop with young people who have never met a Native American person. And my goal with a lot of these travels is, again, breaking stereotypes that people have of Native Americans, of being alcoholics, of not having their lives together, of like all these terrible things. And so when I go someplace, I'm like, I want to be present and I want to project a positive image of my community, and in that slow, quiet way, I'm protesting and I'm an activist to the stereotypes that my community lives with, by trying hard every day to be doing the right thing and a good thing that helps.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's actually I spent a summer in Kanta on the
Oh,
reservation.
I love it.
Oh, it was
K-Town, K-Town.
yeah, yeah. It was a really incredible experience, and I just remember this was, I mean, more than 10 years ago, but even then having those conversations with the people who live there, because Kanta, it's got the gas station, it's at this crossroads. If you're heading to Monument Valley, you have to turn there. And so they get a lot of tourists coming through, a lot of people coming through, and that casual and not so casual racism and prejudice that people would face for people coming through, and just they didn't talking to a Native American person for the first time and what they bring with them. I mean, it can be so harmful and so present. And it's one of those, I think, those things that people sometimes, I think, when like they live, let's say, in sort of privileged circles in academia, in spaces where people do try to be very conscious, and play spaces where people are doing land acknowledgements and talking about reparations and doing all these things. I think they can forget, or we can forget, how the other 99% of people are not doing that, and they're still bringing what they saw on Saturday morning cartoons to interactions with real people and real cultures. Yeah.
It's amazing how that's ever present, because I again, I think people who are in academia or are in certain circles, at times when I meet people, are they're just like, "Oh, are you still talking about that stuff? Like that's so
Mm.
the 80s or whatever." I said, "I wish it was.
Yeah.
I wish it was. I wish I could tell you that this week I didn't walk into a store and get followed and ask if I speak English, or like I said, I live with that all the time. And those of us who look differently, we live with that. And until it doesn't happen, I will continue to do workshops. I will continue to speak about what it is like coming from my community. And even within my community, I have different people who are native, who are like, "Oh, you're not from home anymore, you live off the reservation and this. And I'm like, well, I still grew up there, and that's still part of my history and who I am, and I'm going to share it. And it's interesting because at times when I've run into people who are like, you don't know what being at home is like, and then I share different parts of my life, they're just like, oh my gosh, you do know. And we thought
Mhm.
you speak English really well, or you're teaching at a university. We thought you had no idea, but you do understand and know. And I said, yep. And I've been to a lot of other places in this world, and I'm searching out other indigenous people. And I may be in Russia in a place that has electricity but no running water, but I know
Mhm.
how to siphon water from a drum and put it into a bucket, and then I know how to prepare a fish or butcher and build a fire. And people always think, oh my god, you don't do any of that, like you seem like you want all the comforts of life. I said, yes, I want all the comforts of life.
Yeah.
I love AC, I love all these different things, but if I had to, I can go back out with nothing and do all of that stuff. And it's a
Mhm.
really hard life. Like when they showed images during COVID, and there was different Navajo people delivering water to different people and trying to like just have water.
Mhm.
And people were like, that I didn't realize that happened. I said, yes. I I feel like a coward at times because I teach in academia and I'm not back at home. But back at home is hard. It's so hard. And so when I think of like, wow, academia is really hard, and I think, no, it's not. Like not having
Mhm.
water, not having a job, all of those different things of home are very difficult. Living with different things that are at home is really hard, and not having the proper counseling to help people in our community deal with alcoholism, to deal with domestic violence, to have services for our animals to get spayed and neutered. That's really hard. So I tell people at times, like they'll say academia is hard, and I complain, and I'm like, oh, it's really hard. But then I have to sit down and remember and think like I could be out in K Town right now without gas and
Mhm.
walking to find a gas tank to get a ride into town, and then get back out to that dirt road to fill up the tank, and along the way think I should have brought water. Like, why did I forget to put 2 gallons of water in the truck with me this morning? That could be that's a hard day.
Mhm.
And so I remember all those things of home, of chopping wood, of delivering wood to different places. My good friends at Hopi, I used to take the sheep manure so they could make their pottery and visit with them. And the big goal for the day was to find somebody who was selling watermelons or making sure there is cantaloupe or that type of stuff at the store that I could take to them out at Hopi land. What seems really normal and simple for a lot of us out in some of these regions can be like such a big gift. I remember somebody once was like, I'm going to go to the res. Like, what should I take to your family? I said, don't freaking bring flowers. I said, like, here in the city or wherever, like, you bring flowers to people, that's nice. But if you're going out there, you better bring a sack of potatoes, a big
Mhm.
thing of coffee, some flour to make bread. Like, bring them in necessities to make a meal or do something. Like, I remember when people would bring my mom flowers, she was like, "Well, first of all, I'm allergic to flowers, and, like, what am I gonna do with this? Like,
Yeah.
you just wasted a good 50, $40 on nice flowers that are wilted because you bought them in Gallup or Albuquerque, and it takes a couple of hours to get here, like, flowers are beautiful, but at times in some of our where I come from, the essentials of making a meal are really important. So
Mhm.
I tell people at times, like, get to know where you're going and what they value, and bring that as a gift. Because again, and it's those types of things that I carry with me when I go to these different places in the world, is I I watch, I sit quietly, I see what they like to eat, and then when I can, I'll go get the chicken, or I'll get the meat or the vegetable or the thing and bring it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, "You could have brought your art." I'm like, "Yeah, but we can share this food together."
Mm.
And that's something that's very human and very basic but beautiful, and that can take you in a lot of places.
Oh, that's lovely. I feel like that's like the perfect note to wrap up on for
Yes.
this wonderful conversation. Where can people find you online and see your
Um,
work and
you can Google Melanie Yazzie and go to the Glen Green Gallery's website. That has a lot of my stuff. And then I work at the University of Colorado at Boulder. My email is there, so they can just go to the art department on the University of Colorado website and find Yazzie and send an email. But it's funny because there is a Facebook thing and an Instagram thing, but my gallery, Carrie Green, runs that, and so people are always like, "Oh, we sent you a message," and I said,
Oh,
I don't I don't ever get those. Like every now and then, I'll send them a picture to post, but I don't read them. I don't check it. They do it to just have activity and so that people can see where I'm at, but I don't do it. So
so email is the way to go
email,
then.
yeah,
That's good to
it's
know.
weird because people think that's really slow now, but I do check my email and I do respond. If I can get into it this morning, I think I
Right?
got locked out of school and I thought, holy crap, I get all my email at school and now I'm locked out and I'm using a school computer and I'm just like kind of stuck. But it usually is the best way to get a hold of me and find me. And I just
Beautiful. I mean, that's how we connected. Worked for
yeah.
me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I always tell people just because they're like, don't you have a website or this? And I saw the gallery, but you have other works. And I'm like, just put Melanie Yazzie and on Google and then push images and it'll show you a bunch of stuff. And then capture it, send me an image, ask me a question about it. I said, I'm at that point in my life where, well, I've been at this point in my life for years now where invitations and things come and if people want me, they'll invite me and not make me go to cafe and fill out a
Right.
paper.
Yeah,
I've never
absolutely.
had to do that, and I'm not ever going to do it. And
And
people are
why
like,
should
"Well,"
you? Yeah.
I know, and they're always like, "You're going to lose out on a lot of opportunities, Yazzie." I say to them, "My resume is over 70 pages long. I haven't missed out on anything.
You're like, I've had an opportunity or two, thank you. Yeah.
I've had plenty, and they don't stop coming." And that's wonderful and amazing, and I'm grateful and so grateful for that. But it all comes with hard work,
Mhm.
and I was able to do it just with email. Anyhow, I
I
love
love that.
sharing and talking, and I hope those of you who are listening have enjoyed this. If there's misunderstandings or questions, you can email me and we can talk more. I'm always open to that. And I just wish everybody a super amazing studio day and art making time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, thank you so much. This has been such a treat.
And thank you for doing these. Is it podcasts? Is that what you called it?
Mhm.
These
Yeah.
podcasts, because I think, I don't know, people I know have said really wonderful things about it. And that's why I was like, oh, I think I want to do that.
Oh,
It's taken
good.
a while to get us to do it because I'm so, I don't know, standoffish about this. But then we finally got it to work and it's exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited to share this conversation. So, yeah, thank you again. If you like today's episode, we have a Patreon where you can help us keep the lights on and get bonus content, like Shop Talk Shorts, where our editor Timothy Pauschak digs deep on materials, processes, and techniques with past guests. Also, if monetary support isn't in the cards right now, you can leave a review for us on your podcast listening app of choice or buy something from one of our sponsors and tell them Hello Print Friend sent you. But as always, the very, very best thing you can do to support this podcast is by listening and sharing with your fellow print friends around the world. And that's our show for this week. Join me again next week when my guests will be Lauren Rosenblum and Christina Weil, curators of the exciting exhibition, A Model Workshop, Margaret Lowengrund and the Contemporaries. This will be on exhibition at the Print Center, New York from September 21st to January 23rd. Lohengrin was the first woman to open her own printmaking studio in the United States, a visionary leader, organizer, and critic within the mid-20th century New York printmaking community, and a driving force behind the revival of artistic lithography. You won't want to miss it. This episode, like all episodes, was written and produced by me, Miranda Metcalf, with editing by Timothy Pauschak and music by Joshua Weber. I'll see you next week.